Hello, everyone. Today's webinar topic is to bid or not to bid. Brian and I have been discussing the merits of pre-bid evaluation and what should you consider before you bid on a job. Like some of you might just bid almost everything that comes across your desk, but in a lot of regions, we believe that there's so many jobs to bid. Many of them you probably shouldn't bid for various reasons, and we'll be discussing that. So this is going to be a two-part series, and with a bonus third. The first two will be going over all the pre-bid evaluation. What would you call them? Subjects, topics?
Sure.
I'm missing the right word.
No, topics are good.
Okay, and there's going to be a bonus third webinar that we will share a worksheet that we've been working on that will have some calculation capability that so you'll be able to run through it and get a score, if you will, based on the topics we'll be discussing, and then be able to apply that to your job. So you can say, well, that didn't really score well for everything that's important to me and my company. So maybe we don't bid that right at the moment, or maybe skip it. But anyway, so to make sure that you get information about our upcoming webinars, be sure to like this video and follow our channel so you'll get an alert when we schedule our upcoming webinars. We also will be sending emails, of course, but those don't always get to you. So it's always good to like and subscribe to our channel. Um, and there's a chat if you're on YouTube. There's a chat off to the right. And if you're logged in, you can ask any questions during this process here. And so I think I'm going to hand it over to Brian now to take us through some of today's pre-bid evaluation topics.
Thanks, Derek. Yeah, the impetus of the thought process on this webinar, this uh, uh, video, if you will, was that we do get a lot of input from customers on whether they're bidding a job or not. And as I've trained customers over the years, that's always one of the things that comes up, and it's always kind of uh, you know, uh, off the off the cuff kind of response. Are we going to bid this or not? So we're trying to give you some of the topics, some of the things that you want to look at before you make that decision, help you quantify it, if you will. As Derek said, this will be a three-part webinar. The first one, we're going to go through about 7 or 8 topics that you can look at when you're evaluating whether or not to bid a job. And then the second webinar will be another 7 or 8 topics. And then the third webinar will be giving you like a worksheet or a tool to actually quantify it. So now it is very subjective. We'll start with the first topic here. Um, Where's my slide? So our first topic is cash flow implications. Small, medium, large companies, cash flow is always an issue. So when you look at a bid, you want to think about, have you got the cash flow assets or reserves capability to do the job? There's always credit. That's one way to deal with cash flow. You can have credit with just a basic credit card or bank credit, and there's also credit usually available with your suppliers. So that's one of the things you want to factor in. Another thing that comes in is if it's a larger job, if you can front load it. A lot of the time they'll want you to give them a billing schedule. We're going to bill 20% at the end of the first month, 40% at the end of the second month. But if you're able to front load it, in other words, bill a little more of the percentage of the job than you've actually done, and a lot of general contractors understand that you need to front load jobs as far as the billing because you need to get some cash flow coming in. And then at the end of the job, there's retention. How much of the job, it's not unusual to have a 10% retention at the end of the job, which means they can hold your money for, a few weeks or a few months or even longer sometimes if there's problems. So you got to be able to manage those cash flow implications.
Is the retention something you know before you accept the job?
Well, it would definitely be part of the contract. Yeah. So
Right.
you would know that before you actually totally agree to to do the job.
But not before you bid it.
Not necessarily, but it
Mm.
might be in the specs or in the contract documents for you to review, and
Okay.
you could certainly ask if there's going to be retention on the job. Um, And it's kind of an option of the general contractor too. Just because they have the ability to retain the money doesn't mean they have to. So
Mhm.
that's something we'll talk about also as your relationship with the general contractor. Manpower availability is again something to look at. Are you going to be able to provide the electricians as many as are going to be needed? Look at the peak demand of the job. If it starts when the peak demand's going to hit, when they're really going to be busy. Is it going to not be day one, but somewhere into the main flow of the job? You're going to need to have as many electricians available as possible. And also, what are the implications of the difficulty or the skill levels of the job? Are you going to need skilled journeymen versus apprentices? Um, so you need to consider your availability for your skilled journeymen as well as your apprentices and how that comes into play as the job goes on. This is kind of a tough one, the competition on the bid list. You may not even know who your competitors are, but the more you can find that out, the better. There's absolutely nothing wrong with asking uh, who you're bidding the job to, who's on the bid list. If there's somebody on that list that tends to get most of their work, that's something in the negative category because if they're going to be uh, favored bidders, that's putting you at a disadvantage as far as being competitive. On the other hand, if you're one of the favored bidders, then that's a positive. So competition is important. It's not easy to get an idea who your competition is, but you want to be aware of it and try to take it into account as much as possible. This is kind of a similar topic. How many bidders are you going up against? And what's too many? I really think people don't look at this enough. Again, the knee-jerk reaction is, no, I want to bid that job. Well, try to do a little bit of homework and find out how many people are bidding the job. In my mind, if there's more than 4 or 5 bidders that you're going against, it may not be worth your time, or it's certainly not as much of a attractive job as one where there's 2 or 3 bidders. I don't think it's a good idea to be in a position where you're bidding against more than 5 other companies because the possibility that somebody is really going to go after the job, they're desperate to get the work, or they make a mistake. The more bidders, obviously, the more chances are that you're bidding against somebody that has a number that you really don't want to compete with. So the number of bidders is important, and you may just have to go by history when you bid that kind of job with that particular customer or that group of contractors. And they're getting 8 or 10 bids. It's maybe sometimes the best bid is the one you don't bid. Um, so keep that in mind. Again, it, it, it isn't necessarily easy to find out how many bidders there are, but if you pay attention to it, you probably can get a good indication. Your suppliers might tell you too. If you're bidding a job that has a fixture or gear package, and you can just casually say, hey, have you got any other uh, local contractors, electrical contractors bidding the job? They'll give you feedback.
I suppose the source of the bid request, you'll look kind of get a feel for how many people start bidding from certain sources.
Absolutely, yep. So the quality of the design, how did and the is an issue you want to think about here. Uh, a good design, a good set of drawings is better than a bad set. Obviously, sometimes the quality of the drawings varies greatly. Uh, so you need to look at, is this a well engineered job? Are the drawings clear? The rules of the games straightforward and easy to follow? Related to that is the fairness of the change orders. Do you if it's a bad design or incomplete design or not a good design, change orders are going to be something you need to be doing because you're going to have to clarify things. And then when that you need to do extra work or different work than maybe the drawings had indicated, then uh, you need to look at the history of how the contractor handles the change orders. Are they going to be really tough on you? Are they going to be a little lenient? And again, that's going to be something that you learn with history is how fair the particular general contractor is with the change orders, and even with that type of job, is it something that you're going to get a lot of negative feedback and get change orders kicked back to you? So the fairness with the change orders can make or break a job. I've had many contractors tell me over the years that that's sometimes where they only make where they make the biggest portion of their profit or make any profit is on the change orders. So if you know going in that there's going to be a lot of change orders because there's a lot of mistakes and weakness in design, then you also want to be thinking about whether you're going to get paid fairly for those. And again, these are all subjective things. There's not a yes or no answer to any of these, I don't think. But I think the more you can try to evaluate them, and like I said, we're going to give you a tool to quantify it a little better in the third webinar and give you a little worksheet that'll actually help you quantify it. Kind of along the same lines as the reputation of the owner. Are they well organized and run the jobs well? That's going to have a lot of impact on you as the electrical contractor. If they're not organized, they're not giving you enough lead time. If they're not running the job well, then obviously that impacts your productivity. Productivity is everything in the electrical contracting business, in my opinion. Um, you need to be able to come in at worse on budget as far as the number of hours you've estimated, and hopefully you can come in under budget. And a lot of that's going to be depending on how well the owner runs the job, the general contractor. Are they going to make timely payments? That's always a challenge, is to get paid on time. Back to our initial topic of cash flow. If you know from experience, or the the owner has a reputation of not making timely payments, then that's a negative, obviously. If they're good about it, then again, that's a positive. The last topic here is just if you have a chance to review the site conditions. Sometimes we have to bid jobs, we haven't seen the site, but even then, you could still start looking at things like material storage. Are we going to have uh, good availability of material storage? I once helped on a bid for a job with an actual a stadium, the sci-fi stadium up in LA that was built 4 or 5 years ago. And that was one of the big concerns, and one of the things we had to put an allowance in for was because all of the material storage was off-site. You had to, I think it was a mile or two off-site to go get your material. It took time. It took coordination. So material storage maybe seems trivial sometimes, but you need to give that some thought. Sometimes you have to pay for material storage. You may have to bring in storage units and that kind of thing. So look at the material storage aspect of it. If you can review the job site, that's a little more concrete as far as knowing what your options are. Simple things like parking. Are you going to be able to park in the vicinity of the job? And again, traffic. So when you're working in downtown metropolitan areas, the traffic alone can be an impact on your productivity. If it takes extra time to get to the job site, or to uh, get around, just to move around to and from the job, then that's a negative impact on the job. So lots of things to think about. Um, Again, we've got another set of topics we'll be going over at the next webinar. If anybody attending this particular webinar has some follow-up thoughts on the things we talked about today, don't hesitate to reach out to us and give us some feedback. We'll be glad to discuss it at the next webinar, or even get back to you personally if it sounds like something we need to discuss with you, or you've got some thoughts on it. We might add it to the next webinar, or uh, talk about it at the next webinar. I think that's about it, Derek. I was going to mention the date for the next one is, I wrote this down somewhere. It's August 21st. That's a Thursday. That's when we're going to do part 2 with the topics to look at to bid or not to bid. And then on September 18th, we're going to do the last webinar in this series, which is going to be a worksheet or a tool to help you quantify all this. So you can start thinking about, just your thought process of, would you get an opportunity to bid a job, or when you're going to look at the option to bid a job, to start evaluating some of these topics.
Yep. Yep.
Go ahead,
All
Derek.
right.
Any
No, I don't have any questions right now, and I can't think of anything else to add. I think that you covered the topics pretty well. And the only thing that popped into my head was that the evaluation worksheet, like some of these topics, you might not think that much about. You just assume, well, it'll be okay, and that might be how you would review it on the worksheet. But because there's, I think, 10 or 12 points of data on the worksheet, it ends up giving you some a different value for every job, because there'll be variations for each job that you bid on. And I don't know, we're kind of
the
looking
worksheet's
forward to
all,
sharing it.
the worksheet is also going to allow you to uh, tell indicate whether it's a high priority or a low priority or somewhere in the middle too. So it'll help you with that process, because maybe some of these things you just don't care that much about, or others you think are really critical. So this worksheet will help you prioritize those different aspects of the bid evaluation process.
We have a comment in the chat. I love the name of this user, story time. We used to blind bid from job boards and found it to be a waste of time.
There we
These
go.
tools are giving us these tools you are giving us will help. We've decided not to bid jobs anymore unless there is a walkthrough so we can meet. So that's follows follows through some of the topics that you brought up today,
Definitely.
and will be touched on in our next webinar. Thank you for sharing that in story time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for being here, and look for an email, and be sure to like our video and subscribe or follow our channel here so you get alerts for our upcoming videos. And we're continuing to churn our videos out, and we're thinking of new ideas. So
We do
stay
post these
tuned.
on our YouTube channel, and by by registering for this webinar, you'll be automatically notified of upcoming webinars.
Yep. Yeah. All right. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.
All right.